All right, let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about today. So, doing well on MRs for the month. You can see the number there. OKRs for the second quarter are due by May 8th. I will create an issue so we can talk about it and come up with one we can all participate in creating it. Don't have any ideas off the top of my head. One of them will probably be on iteration. We've done an iteration brainstorming or an iteration retrospective before. Maybe it's time to do another one just to go back and reinforce our iteration skills. So I will throw together an issue and just start throwing out some ideas, and then we can come up with minimum of 2. I think a maximum of 3 is typically what's asked for. And there's a new structure on OKRs that I need to read up on. But I'll just throw the brainstorming issue out there. Let's see. So instead of going through individual by individual this week, I figured we could go through the big topics because there's a lot going on in this milestone and there's still a lot that's unassigned. We had some of the tracing and user stories that Josh had defined for 13.0. Those are unassigned right now. We can talk about what's going on in 13.0 and then look for folks that are coming off what they're working on and maybe assign DRIs for some of those areas for the unassigned work. So let's get into, we can talk about Puma. So Camille, you want to run through those real quick?
Yes, so I mean, it's like I wrote everything. The updated patch is pushed. I'm like waiting for Nate feedback right now. We also like retested some aspects of that patch, like to match exactly the values being put. It behaves exactly how it should behave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for basically for like validation from Nate.
Okay. So it's just wrapping up at this point. I think the other related issue was documenting the health check. Was that one?
Yes, so I didn't start working on this documentation part. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like thinking that this is like the most important aspect right now to finish, because then we could start tracking upstream Puma version instead of our fork.
Yep.
And I'm gonna go back to the documentation once this is done.
Yeah, documentation so probably won't take you long, right?
Right now I'm actually like waiting for the follow-up on this one.
Okay.
So let's hope it's gonna be kind of resolved quickly.
Okay. And then CI minutes, where are we at, Lexi?
In CI minutes, we tested it on staging. It works as expected, and I prepared a plan to test it on production. It needs to be reviewed, and to roll it out, I need to wait until our fix will land production, but it should happen soon because it's on Canary already. So
okay.
I didn't discuss rollout yet with Camille and Kenny. It's the next stage. But
so probably rollout could be tricky because I think at this point we really need this infrastructure of the runners to be like implemented. But we're gonna have a separate issue about. I mean, we're gonna discuss that, I believe, tomorrow.
Okay.
Because I think at this point, like, we are likely blocked by the lack of this item on the production.
What was the item again, Camille? I missed that.
Creation of the GitLab Docker shared runner manager from the Alex Hanselka. I'm assuming that we are blocked. Maybe we could unblock ourselves somehow, but it would make our testing much more easier if this would be in place at this moment.
Okay. Can you link the issue there when you get a moment? So anything else to cover on CI minutes? All right. Indy JSON, Camille, you had some concerns about progress on rolling it out and testing.
So like we have two tracks, which is like the project and the group. Group is like being handled by another team. So they merged the group and the JSON support on the import exporting side. So like it seems like the development part should be pretty much done at this moment. There is like really like what we have left with ND-JSON is like validation and the documentation basically at this moment, because at least from my perspective, it seems that like all changes, like 99% of changes are done as long as everything works as expected. But if it doesn't work as expected, we may need to do additional changes. So right now we need to kind of conclude that validation part and do figure out like the most minimal changes to the documentation to say to it close. Because like I think some issues about that, there is like very little progress on majority of them that are related to the validation and the documentation. So it's still fine because like we still have something like 3 weeks, but time passes by quickly.
And I can see that the second issue that Camille posted is created by Joshua, and it's kind of duplicated as the one I created for both export and import, or maybe not. I'm not.
Yeah, I think these are.
Not that one, about the one with the staging. I'm not sure which link is. It's 215059. 215059. 5059. And I created 2 separate issues to test import and export on staging as well. This is currently blocked since I don't still have problem with access to staging as admin. I have access to Rails console and I tried yesterday to test it, but I don't have write access, so I cannot export the file. The export failed for me. So I pinged today Dave Smith. Do you hear me?
Why do you need admin access on staging?
How can I run import and export rake task in order to measure the results?
Okay, so you really mean the SSH access?
Yes.
Because there is like different types of the accesses, like admin
yes,
can indicate
yes,
web interface admin. There is like Rails console type of the access, and there is also SSH access.
Yes. So I have Rails console access, but still I cannot run. I tried running it from the Rails console, but like export file cannot be saved because I don't have write access to the files.
Can we find some SRE to pair with to do it? Because like it's really like one time off task for us to do, right? Like,
it is, but still I'm wondering. We can test now, like run it with and without ND-JSON enabled, but like streaming serializer is already removed, so we cannot test without streaming serializer. So
we can test this between us because both Alexei and I have access, right? We don't need an SRE to do this.
So it would be even better, like if Alexei or Matthias do have access already to run it.
Yeah. I hope that this access thing will get faster, but like I didn't get response from Dave Smith for 3 days.
Yeah, let's just find some time tomorrow or whatever.
Well, it's pretty simple. We just need to run both rake tasks for 2 different projects and enable ND-JSON and run it again, and that's it.
I could do it today if you will be available after the meeting.
Yeah, sure. We can pair up.
So as for the testing plan, can we do something following, like because like after enabling NDJSON, can we try to import the project with the legacy format and project with the NDJSON format to ensure that like both do import properly? So like
I can update the description for those two issues that I pasted. I already like defined the steps what should be tested once it's disabled and enabled, and maybe we can update it when we enable to try both formats.
because like I think what is important for us is like if you enable export flag, we're gonna export in the new format, and there is like no like support for the legacy format at this point. But on the importing side, we need to ensure that we can properly import the old format and the new format. This is I think what is important, like to validate as part of that. That is, and like probably we would get on the importing side the data from that as well.
Okay, so update this one with those different permutations then.
Yeah, I will. And group import is unrelated, right?
Yes, like we do not care about the group stuff. Only I think like we only need to validate project on staging, and maybe like with our hands we do like the most minimal changes to the documentation and figure out then what next really as part of the rollout. But I think like what is most important aspect for me is like to ensure that this works end to end. That hopefully we don't need to do any additional merge requests to fix some aspects of that. I mean, the logic, behavior, maybe some bugs, or at least not at this point.
Small question. Running this, for example, export rake task on staging, like through shell, running it through shell, it takes like 1.5 hours. Do we have a way to run it faster? To run it in some other way?
I don't think
because
that there is.
I guess that the console like has less memory than really staging have. So just thinking, because when I try from Rails console, it takes 2.5 hours, and it happens that it times out from time to time. So it's really slow to test all cases.
I don't have good answer for that. I would only try like to validate that it works, because like I would only try to validate that via rake task, but maybe there is also another good idea. Is like as soon as we enable both feature flags, because we have 2 feature flags for NDJSON, try to perform this export and import using web and API. But like we are already using API and web on our import-export metrics, if I'm correct, right? So this is already something that validates that part of the workflow. So running rake task, really, I believe is like we only do that for getting metrics at this moment, right, Nicola?
Yes, that's true. But I already merged 2 MRs that are like including metrics in service layer. So there is only 3rd one that it will be merged soon. That will enable us to have metrics when we call import exports using API. So once we inject this import export log file, we can have those metrics in Kibana as well.
Okay. Because like as for the export, I'm not sure about the import. It's just a side key task. What else we have? We have memory consumption. We don't really have that in the side key. Let's try like the most boring way. Like let's fire this rake task. Let's see what happens. If it's just fire and forget, maybe like we get back to it tomorrow and see what did happen. maybe it's gonna be fine.
Okay, so do these two issues then cover the remaining work that needs to be done from our team for ND-JSON?
Yes, I'm not sure what to do with Joshua task. That is
I closed it already
okay, great.
and linked these two issues here. Okay, and then
Perfect.
Nicola, you'll update the import issue
Yeah, I will.
with the different permutations of support. Okay, cool, thank you. So action cable, Matthias, you added a new issue today, it looks like.
Yes. Yeah. If you want to read up on the details, I'm not going to go into the details because it's too much. But go to that issue I linked. This should have. I'll update it. I keep updating it with like the latest state of affairs. But maybe as like a super high level overview, we basically spent last week looking at three main things. The first thing was what does action cable itself add to the memory footprint? Meaning the action cable, the library. We found there was like almost nothing. So that wasn't really worth investigating more, because we first had thought, well, maybe, I don't know, if there's like the server portion of action cable, if we could split this out from the rest of action cable, then maybe we could only pay that memory cost, but it's not worth it because it's too small. Then what we then did is we looked at what could be a technical split in terms of if we run normal web nodes and action cable specific nodes, are there any memory savings we can do there? And what we focused there was basically on memory sharing. So how can we make sharing of memory between these processes more efficient? So that's currently what we're looking into. And then the third one was, is there a possibility to get memory savings by splitting it more along the vertical axis, which is the feature axis, because we had thought, well, there's only a number of features where we actually would have real-time functionality. So maybe this is something we can separate out and then only run on the action cable service, but that turned out to be like super tricky. There's an open issue for this. I'm not totally sure it's going anywhere, to be honest, because what we had identified, what we could do is all like really difficult long-term work, like basically restructuring the application in terms of like feature modules or whatever. So I don't think that's going to be super fruitful. But yeah, these were the three main areas we looked at. So what we're focusing on right now is really on the memory sharing aspects and trying to make that more efficient.
Okay.
Yeah, so my main question would be at this point, I don't think we really have like good exit criteria for our involvement in this, because we can spend a long time, trying to squeeze out more megabytes from, in terms of savings there. I mean, I'm not totally sure like what's good enough and like what we have never said what is acceptable, to run WebSockets. So it's really hard to say like what I should be spending more time on, because yeah, we can keep working on this 4 months.
I was going to ask about this issue that you created.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's like, so this we did because there was a lot of confusion and it wasn't easy to see how much memory is actually currently being shared between processes. And like, because mostly what we report is the resident set size for a process, which is kind of the process's view of like how much memory like is mapped to physical memory. But it doesn't account for these overlaps between processes. And like in these pre-fork servers that we run, you actually can get a lot of overlap, because they all load the same Rails application. They all load Rails. They all load the same gems. And a lot of this is like static. It doesn't really change. So this can be shared. So, but there were like a couple blind spots, and like where we, like currently in production in Prometheus, we don't even report the unique set size and the proportional set size, which are these metrics that actually give you some insight into how big are these like shared memory spaces in production, for instance. So that's like a short-term thing that might help inform some of these things. So I just pulled that in.
So I think from my standpoint, and Camille, you can correct me if I'm way off on this one, but as being a participant in the working group, especially from the memory standpoint, is just making sure that they understand the memory impact of what they're implementing, and that we've given them guidance on here's how you can measure it. And if they have that in place, I mean, you can continue to participate and kind of follow along, but switch your focus on to something else in our backlog, because it doesn't sound like there's much from an implementation standpoint that we can or should take on this. And that if you've given them enough information and feel like they have enough ways to measure the memory impact of what they're doing, then I think we're in a good spot and you can.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. And I think this story I would like to wrap up and ship, because it does actually help with that, because it is hard to understand what the impact would be and what the savings would be from the measures that we suggested that we could do to save memory. But I think once that is done, I think we have outlined a few avenues that we could take to look at memory savings. And I think it's probably enough to work with.
So you're saying this issue right here, wrap this one up so that.
Yeah, I mean, like there's an MR out already. I'm just wrapping up the MR. It's not a lot of work. It's just, I think it's good to like, it's not just for Action Cable. It's like really for us to understand better, like what do we actually consume in terms of memory, like in real terms, like physically speaking. Also helps with like, you know, capacity planning and stuff, because RSS is actually not a good measure for that.
I think that's perfect then. Wrap that up and then pick up something else in our backlog and you can continue to attend the meetings just to kind of monitor and lend some guidance if they need it from the memory team.
Yep, totally. Cool.
Oh, that's yours. Right, cover that one. And then atomic processing. I saw your notice this morning, Nicola, where we're going to run it for a longer period in production and monitor before we fully roll it out.
Yeah, that's true. We enabled this morning and it will be enabled until Thursday, 2 p.m. UTC time. And then we will analyze data and see if there are any problems. And I hope that if there are no issues, that this is a good sign to enable it.
Okay. And really, it's just, there's no other work right now. This is passive monitoring, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Except for the random things that Camille says we're fixing.
Yeah, that's true that there were some small improvements.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a little bit work like preparing Kibana dashboard and updating some visualizations for those new dates, but this is some small random things for Kibana. So.
And then I was going to bring up, so we have some unassigned work in our backlog. So these are some of the things that Josh talked about at kickoff, right? So the performance testing of common GitLab user journeys, and he's got some more content in there. I'd read up on that issue. And then the distributed tracing for GitLab.com. The tracing is it's available, but it's not largely used across GitLab. Matthias, I was going to ask about the check that detects degenerated pool sizes. How critical is that? Should we backlog it or see if we can get Infra to take it along with the other issue that we're asking?
We should, because the conversation has shifted to I think it's the scalability group. They're looking into this stuff now, and I think they're identifying next steps. So, and that was part of the discussion. Yeah, that definitely move that to the backlog. It's not going to happen in 13.0.
Okay. And I'll follow up with.
I think because like, is it Rachel?
Yep.
Yeah, right. It sounds like she's on top of that. And I don't know about this issue specifically, but some of the kind of sibling issues that also fell out of the same epic. I don't know if there's more in here. They were being discussed in the same thread. So it sounds like scalability will look after that.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and there's a couple other small issues in the backlog if folks are looking for things to do.
I'm copied on these conversations though, so I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let you know how we're moving on with that, and then we can always still close that afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, but the two big ones that Josh wanted to get some traction on were the performance testing and distributed tracing. So if anyone's feels like they're coming up and are looking for another big juicy story to work on, feel free to assign yourself when we start talking more about details asynchronously within the issue itself. So we have about 3 minutes till I need to jump off for next meeting. Any other topics we need to cover today or have follow-ups asynchronously? Nope. All right. Well, happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday.
See ya.
Yeah.